What are artificial food preservatives? Artificial food preservatives are a group of chemical substances which are used in food production to slow down spoilage, discoloration, or contamination by bacteria and other disease-forming organisms or pathogens. We see these chemicals in everyday products such as soda, bread, cereal, and even our vegetables. There are different kinds of artificial food preservatives that you can find on the back of nutrition labels. These different kinds of chemicals fall into 3 different categories such as antimicrobial agents, antioxidants, and chelating agents. Each chemical is designed for a specific purpose to prevent the food from any kind of spoilage, just to name a few chemicals such as benzoates, sodium benzoate, sorbates, nitrates, polyphosphates, citric acid, and sulfites. Can all be found on the labels of a majority of the foods we see in an average American grocery store.
What is the purpose of these chemicals and why do we use them?
The purpose of these chemicals are clearly used to prevent waste of food and spoilage. They are also used to protect the consumers from catching any harmful disease or sickness from contaminated food. These chemicals prevent mold, fungi, and yeast from forming on the food so that it lasts longer and big corporations do not lose money on spoiled food.
Are these chemicals safe?
According to Dr. McCullough, more than 3,000 food additives, preservatives, flavorings, colors, and other ingredients are added to U.S. foods. While each of these substances are legal to use in the United States, whether or not they are safe for long-term consumption, by themselves or in combination, is a different story altogether. Many have been deemed too harmful to use in other countries. When you consider that about 90% of the money Americans spend on food goes towards processed foods loaded with these additives, it's no wonder most people are carrying a hefty toxic load that can wreak havoc on their health.
The video you're about to watch emphasizes the dangers that the chemical sodium benzoate alone can have on humans.
New questions today about a common food additive you can find in a lot of soda and a number of other products too. A British consumer group pushing to ban food coloring using sodium benzoate. They are worried about possible side effects on children. The author of the book, The Hot Latin Diet, with us now, Dr. Manny Alvarez, FoxNewsHealth.com managing editor. Doctor, welcome back here. Nice to see you.
How are you, Bill? Good morning.
I'm doing fine. I hope I said the name right of this additive.
Sodium benzoate, yeah.
What do they use it for? What is it?
Well, it's a food preservative. It really extends the shelf life of a lot of different soft drinks and juices. And look, it's been around for a long time. Sodium benzoate is found in a lot of natural products like fruits and things like that. But when you begin to add it into soft drinks, and this is a very common chemical, there's now a new question, and this study that was done in Europe basically is showing, at least in the laboratory, that excessive amounts of sodium benzoate can interfere with the normal cell cycle. It really destroys a little bit of the cell, it destroys the mitochondria, so the whole functionality of normal cell tissue is damaged.
Hey, doctor, let me stop you there. That does not sound good.
Well, it doesn't sound good.
What can that create in a human being?
Well, look, I think we have reached a tipping point. In FoxNews.com, we have a whole segment today talking about greening your life. And if you talk to a lot of experts, I think, when you look at the exposure that a lot of our kids and adults are getting in all these chemicals as preservative coloring, and we look at the incidence of autism, learning disabilities, rates of cancer, you have to begin to wonder whether we have reached the tipping point. The WHO, the World Health Organization, looked at this chemical in 2000 and they say, look, it's safe, it doesn't look bad, but they have a disclaimer that basically said there's not a lot of studies out there yet. Look, the fundamentals is going to be when you get scientists looking at these chemicals and the exposition that it has in the food chain, you have to go back to the drawing board and you have to do more prospective studies.
So what they're doing then, doctor, if I hear you right, is they're looking for the smoking gun that causes things like asthma and a number of other issues within either small children or even adults.
Yeah.
Do you think they found that smoking gun?
I think we're finding a lot of smoking guns. I think we're finding a lot of chemicals that perhaps have been excessively used in a lot of the daily products that we use, and we have to go back to more natural things and more organic juices and soft drinks, and ultimately more research needs to be done, because look, these, when you start adding all these chemicals into our system, these chemicals in the beginning had no place whatsoever. Now you're adding shelf preservation, coloring preservation, and all these things. And I think that we have to pay attention to all these studies that come from independent researchers that have really no financial ties many times to
That's interesting,
to a lot of products, and they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, Doctor, keep an eye on this for us, will you?
Got it.
We'll come back and we'll continue our discussion. Manny Alvarez, thanks, and congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
As you can see, a lot of these chemicals are overused in the products that we consume every day. According to Dr. Alvarez in the news report, we see through studies that the chemical sodium benzoate destroys a part of the cell and disrupts the cell cycle. There is a correlation between the exposure to artificial food preservatives and serious health problems such as cancer, attention deficit disorder, and autism. What other alternative is there?
When it comes to wanting to live a healthier life and getting rid of foods that contain these harmful chemicals, there are several ways to doing so. Ditch all the processed food entirely. Switching your diet completely may seem drastic, but it is necessary for your health. Processed foods are a new invention, unlike more natural foods that have been around for centuries. Getting food at a local market or at a Whole Food is the best way to getting more natural food and a better diet.
In this last video you're about to see, it shows the importance of changing your eating habits and why it's better to switch to organic foods rather than conventional artificial foods.
Hey everyone, Lacey Green here for D News. Over the past 5 years or so, you may have noticed the organic produce section slowly getting bigger and bigger. Organic basically means the produce was grown old school style. They aren't using fertilizers to control weeds or pesticides to ward off insects. They use natural, non-chemical means that promote water and soil conservation while creating less pollution. Conventional methods use all that stuff, and thus they're able to grow a lot more food a lot more quickly. While organic and conventional produce look pretty much the same, organic is often a lot more expensive. So the question is, what are you paying for, and is it worth the dollars? At the end of the day, the answer to that question comes down to personal priorities and budget. But here's a rundown of what the studies say. A controversial study that came out of Stanford in 2012 found that there was no significant nutritional difference between organic and conventional produce. The scientists hand-selected 237 studies to analyze and found a few key outcomes. 1, no difference in vitamin, protein, or fat content. 2, no evidence of health risks with conventional produce, but 3, conventional produce has a 30% increased risk of pesticide contamination. They also found that children who eat conventional produce have more pesticide residues in their pee and exposure to higher levels of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The study was widely criticized by the scientific community for using faulty methods and leaving out several really important studies about nutritional content. Fast forward to 2014, and the British Journal of Nutrition has just released the largest international analysis ever, covering 343 studies on organic produce. Their findings tell a slightly different story. The researchers found that organic produce is more nutritious and that it contains up to 70% more antioxidants than conventionally grown produce. They found that the chemical fertilizers, which allow the vegetables to grow bigger and faster with little effort, don't allow for proportional antioxidant development. So even though the veggies are bigger, the health benefits aren't the same. Antioxidants are developed as the vegetable fights to survive and grow, so if they're protected by the chemicals, you get a different result. The review also found that conventional produce has more pesticides, and up to 48% more exposure to the toxic metal cadmium. I've done a lot of personal research on the topic, and it seems to me that organic has a lot of health benefits, and the widespread use of antibiotics, pesticides, and chemical fertilizers is pretty questionable. But conventional produce is still much better than no produce at all, and you're not on the fast track to death if you eat it.